New data on federal student loan debt was recently released, and it spells disaster for the economy. This data comes from the Department of Education, and one of its main findings from this data is that just around half of student loan borrowers are falling behind on their payments. Roughly 51% of Americans with federal student loan debt, or federal student loans, are falling behind on the $1.3 trillion of accumulated student loan debt that is now outstanding, meaning that these students will more than likely take more than 10 years to repay their debts. Now already, sounds pretty bad. For how bad it is, let's go to Stephen. Stephen, what do you think?
It's just, I mean, as a student myself, I find it depressing that we have to even take loans out for education. Just the other day I got through a letter from the UK government loan agency saying, oh, we've seen that you're now in full employment and you need to start paying your loans. And I'm like, well, no, I'm still in education, I'm still at university, leave me alone. Just, I mean, you'll show the charts in just a second, but it's bad reading all the way around, any way you look at it.
For sure. Julie, you have, from what I understand, you have a kid in college. So tell me a little bit what it's like to have, if they have to take out student loans, and what your experience is so far with them.
Actually, my 24-year-old graduated last year, so she's starting to deal with student loans right now, and my 18-year-old is just starting this year, so we've had a lot of experience with student loans. Fortunately, neither of them had to take out, well, my daughter went to a private institute here in Indiana, and so she had about $32,000 worth of loans. My son may end up with 15 because he's going to be in an honors program next year, and he'll be eligible for more government funding, so to speak, and not have to take out as much loan. But it is hard for them. It's very difficult for these kids to try to pay back because after 6 months, it's like bam. And most of them are employed in their field. My daughter is a theater major, and she's still working, doing what she was doing in high school, basically.
Right, and that's one of the huge problems is employment. And we'll get to some of that. Actually, as Stephen alluded to, I have a few charts to show you why this is so devastating and why so many people are falling behind. Now, for one, this chart you can see like outstanding student loan debt from 2007 alone, and how much how much that it's actually risen, and it's really, I mean, if you can see that, it's disastrous how much student loan debt is now piled on students. In the next one, we've got, of course, how wages have fallen and student loan debt has risen. Once again, incredibly disastrous trend that you can see there. And we've got another graph of how many people are actually really struggling to make these student loan payments. There are some that, I mean, just 49% of people are current on their loans, which means 51% of people are falling behind. And that's just incredibly sad and disheartening. And I've got one more to show you here, and that is, of course, borrowers that are actually getting help from the federal government versus those that are needed. And obviously, there's so many distressed loans out there, and also income-based repayment. And I'll get into that here in a minute. So one of the ways that the government has been trying to fight this thing is that if you're low income, then you can qualify for a basically an income-based repayment plan, which, once again, if you are low income, it makes it so that your student loan payments per month are nothing. Now that's really helpful. That plan is really helpful for the 40% of student loan borrowers that are low income, but it really doesn't solve the underlying problem of tuition hikes and who ends up paying that in the end. So that's, I mean, it's really, really just a major problem that's just waiting to happen.
Yeah, I mean, the first chart that you showed there, where you just saw kind of the gradual increase of the overall student debt that resides in America, essentially in an 8-year period, it's doubled from, it's just over 500 million to now it's over 1 billion. And the thing is, as well, there's another chart there that you didn't show, but it'll be in the link in the descriptions below. but the number of people who are actually receiving kind of government loans for their education hasn't increased that much. That's only increased by, about 25. It's gone from 29 million to about 40 million. So it's increased by about 10 million in total. 25% increase, and yet the actual size of the debt has increased by 100%. It's just staggering, and there doesn't seem to be any real solution at the moment. I mean, I know Elizabeth Warren has got a really kind of smart solution that should be pushed forward, but the fact that also, I mean, it is good that currently you have to be earning a certain amount for you to have to start paying back. Here in the UK, it's about £18,000 a year, so that's about, I don't know, $25,000 you need to be earning per year for you to have to start paying back your student loan, roughly.
And most people here in America don't even make that.
No, and that's one of the most depressing things. We'll get into a story later about kind of the average wage of people hasn't increased over the last couple of years. But at the moment, the numbers just seem to be going up and up and up. And it doesn't seem to be, you don't hear really any real talk about it in the media. You get one story maybe once a month in the mainstream, and that'll be it. None of the politicians are talking about it. None of the media are talking about it. And it's just a problem that's only going to get worse and worse unless it's solved, and soon.
Right. Julie, do you have any thoughts on this?
One thing that is a huge problem is that you talked about the income-based payment agreement. That's not something that is being pushed by these loan makers. I know that was not an option at all that was ever mentioned to either myself or my daughter when we've been talking to folks getting these loans repaid. And that's a big problem. There are people that are getting in debt, and they're burying themselves further and further, and they're not receiving all the options that are available that can keep them at least above water for the time being.
Right, and that was that chart that showed that, the options of where people are actually getting help that they need, and versus people that can get that help but don't get it. But I want to go on to the other one of the other important points that I sort of get from this, and it's the fact that college doesn't pay what it used to pay for getting a college degree. And the whole point of college was to get those higher paying jobs, except that those higher paying jobs after the recession no longer exist anymore in the numbers that we need them to. Also, there's a problem, of course, with the wages staying the same at those other jobs. We've got wage stagnation, and a lot of those other factors make it so that the taxpayers now are pretty much forced to subsidize the student first in the college loans that they're unable to pay back because they can't find a good job, and the subsequent government assistance that a lot of them will end up having to receive, because once again, the only jobs that they're able to find are low-wage service sector jobs that are unable to service that debt. And the other problem is when people do find good-paying jobs, they still have to devote a very large portion of their income to servicing that loan. Once again, that puts people off from buying houses, cars, getting married, whatever. Overall, in the economy, it just really lowers the overall demand for goods and services. And in a service-based economy like ours, as Dan Spear loves to call it, the snuggie economy, if people don't have money to spend and they're not spending that money, our entire economy grinds to a halt.